Well, this pattern for packaging marbles, or if I have a whole bunch of them, even this large scheme here, works great for organizing my marbles and keeping track of. I could definitely tell if one is missing from this pattern here. But to use this pattern, that's dependent on having exactly the right number of marbles to fit into this packaging structure. It's very rare that I would get down to my last marble at the end of the day, and this last marble here would just fit into this last small package that would just fit into this last medium package that would just fit into this last large package that would just fit into this last extra large package. Usually, far more common, I'm going to have too many or too few marbles that they won't fit exactly into this sort of structure. What do? Well, hopefully that's the question you've been thinking about in the last couple of videos since I asked that question, and now we can start to consider some possible answers. Say that I have this collection of marbles here that I've spilled out on the floor, and I start packaging them up into small packaging, and then every time I get enough small packages to fit on the fingers of my hand, I package those together in a medium package and end up with this many medium-sized packages. But then there's not enough small packages left over to fill up another medium-sized package. Well, but I can still line up I can still make the small packages and line them up and say that I've got this many left over, and say that after I'm done making these smaller packages, there's not enough to make another small package even, but there's enough, well, there's just this many left over, and there's not even enough for each one to go on the fingers of my hand, and so I can't package those up, but I can still line them up nicely. Well, using this kind of a leftover scheme, I have a nice organization to my marble. Certainly this organization down here is more ordered than what I started off with here. I've put some structure, some ordering onto the marbles. Now, this ordering here isn't as incredibly symmetric as this was or this was, but it's still, this definitely is an improvement over the completely unordered structure of the marbles laid out on the floor. And this is something that this down here is something that I can replicate every time. From one day to the next, I can use the same fingers on my hand, and I can make the same sized small packages, and from small packages I can make the same sized medium packages. And so I can, using the consistency of the fingers on my hand from one day to the next, I can do the same kind of organizational structure, and I can come up with this same pattern from one day to the next. So as long as I can remember what this overall pattern looked like, certainly remembering this pattern is more reasonable than remembering this one. If I can remember simply that I had 1, 2, 3, this many medium packages and this many small packages and this many left over, then I'm on my way. This certainly seems to be, I'm on my way to keeping track on my marbles, whether I've lost or I've gained any. It still is, it requires some memorization though, or some, I need some way to remember how many mediums did I have, how many smalls did I have, how many leftovers did I have. It still requires some way to remember that. And so having some kind of notation. Now I could draw this pattern out. That's one thing I could do, and that would certainly be easier to draw this pattern than to draw this mess. But this is still ... This is still going to take me forever. Let me get a pen. If I have to do ... Put it in a package ... Put it in a package. This is still going to take me forever to draw this many marbles and come up with a drawing that looks like this whole thing, because I've still got to draw as many marbles as I started off with. So I look for a shorthand symbolic notation that still gives me the right idea without having to draw so many marbles. Well, here's one idea that I had, and this isn't the only way to do it, but here's one idea that I had was, okay, instead of drawing all these marbles, I'll just draw this picture that reminds me of what this picture reminds me of this one. Now, this picture doesn't mean just one marble. This picture means every marble in this picture lives inside of this many layers. Let me draw, I don't want to draw circles, that looks like marbles. This many layers of packaging. Just like every marble up here lives inside of 1, 2, this many layers of packaging. A marble up here lives inside of this many layers of packaging, just like a marble down here lives in this many layers of packaging. Likewise, so this reminds me of this, this reminds me of this picture reminds me of this, and this picture reminds me of this, and then of course the leftover just stays the same. But now this picture certainly is a whole lot easier to draw than this one, and I don't have to draw all of those dots. I only draw one marble inside of the packages to remind me, okay, I've got a whole bunch of marbles that live inside of this depth of packaging. Now, still though, it requires some redundant drawing because I've got to draw a square here and a square with a dot, and then another square with a square and a dot, and another square with a square and a dot. So I got to thinking, can I simplify this further with simpler notation? And I thought about this. How about if I combine all three of these guys together, combine to make this picture, and this one combined to make this, where again, this is symbolic notation. This doesn't mean that I have 1, 2, 3, this many marbles. This means for each marble in this picture, that means that I've got a packaging scheme of marbles that live in this much depth of packaging. So each one of these corresponds to a package that is this deep, and each one of these corresponds to a package that is this deep. This one package that is this deep, and these marbles aren't packaged in anything. Now, this picture, let me get rid of some of my extra arrows just to make it more clear. This picture certainly is going to be a lot easier and a lot faster to draw than this one was, or even this one, or this one. Let's see how fast I can replicate this picture. Say I've got my scratched piece of paper, boom, 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 a square, and this many packaging of this size, this many packaging of this size, and then this many left over. That certainly was a whole